This is Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot, and I am doing an audio interview with Richard Gabriel and Bill Brown, and we have a few other people on the call as well with us. They're partners, which are Lucina Lobos Brown, and we've got Judith Elter, and we've also got Adrian Dudkowitz. I'm not sure if I said that right. Dudovich, okay. And we're doing sort of a conference call here about the mysterious goings-on at the Giza Plateau, and everyone has been very gracious enough to come do this audio with me after we did do an experimental live stream that didn't quite work out audio-wise. So we're giving it a shot with the audio here. And then we're going to follow this up with hopefully possibly booking some radio time in which we can actually have something of a conference on, in a live setting in the future once your presentation on May 9th is done. But in the meantime, you are coming forward to give some background as to the goings-on the Giza Plateau, what's been happening there, and your backgrounds. So if, let's see, either Richard or Bill Brown, one of you should start off, perhaps.
Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, sure, okay. Richard speaking first, yes. Yes, we spoke yesterday, Kerry, and I'm more than happy to cover a little bit of the ground to give a very brief summary of where we've got to with this. We do seem to have stirred up a little bit of a hornet's nest, don't we? There we were going along merrily on our way, working below the radar, doing our research, establishing the fact that there is more to be found and discovered below the Giza Plateau. More frequently than ever, bumping heads with those there who were under license but quite secretly doing things that they weren't supposed to be doing, or perhaps that the public would prefer to know about. And then everything blew up. Our schedule was thrown to one side because we were contacted, or Bill was contacted with some film that was taken at night, a few nights ago under the full moon, where there was a heck of a lot of activity going on under cover of darkness on the plateau and the area between the kiosks where people go in there and the area in front of and below the Sphinx, which has been an open excavation for a year or so now under SCA license. And there were heavy loaders there, sort of high loaders, JCB type machines with forks on the front, and they were lifting, this is what was reported to us, they were lifting items which were identified as looking like chests, sarcophagi, statues and other things. They were loading them onto heavy transporters, possibly even military trucks. And this was filmed with just equipment that was being held by the hands. There were witnesses there as it was being filmed. And the film was promptly passed to us because we are with a large company of friends all over the plateau, and I have to say on both sides of the fence, if I could put it that way, who are very eager for the public to know exactly what's going on there. But when we received this film, we took a look at it, and we realized that the film was very grainy, it was very dark, it wasn't really Hollywood quality, but there was sufficient recorded on the film to show that there was something going on at night there that was questionable at the very least. Also, the film recorded exactly where it was taken. It recorded who was taking it. That was very dangerous. It meant that the film couldn't be shown for those reasons anyway, because it would have brought harm to the person who took it. The film was very grainy, as I say, although in places it did show some things. So we thought, well, the quality anyway isn't all that good, so we can't really put it out. But we took a couple of still frames from it, and we put these on our website, which I'll mention now and perhaps get a chance later again to mention. The main website's richardgabriel.info with the gizamap.com embedded within it, a separate animated interactive website that's bolted to it. But we put these two stills on there enhanced that showed the forklifts lifting things which can quite clearly be made out in those photographs. And next morning we were contacted with frantic phone calls, or Bill was contacted initially, and
Richard, let me talk about that, okay?
yeah, I think it's probably best. First hand from Bill.
This is Bill. When we put the first two pictures on Richard's Gabriel's website, I immediately sent those two pictures to Dr. Hawas's website, asking, please, could you explain to me what is going on? It doesn't look very, it looks like something's going on, and people are asking questions. The next morning, I received a very important email from a very high source that I work with, and they indicated that whoever took the film was in extreme danger, and that the only way that we could possibly even help that person is to get it out publicly. And although we weren't quite ready to release what we couldn't release everything because of who took it and the witnesses. The witness that was there was extremely 100% very close to me, and I knew that he wasn't making anything up. So when we released that, it was a little bit premature, but we did it for his own safety. What was added to that was, although we couldn't guarantee what was going on that night, at 10 o'clock that morning, a huge underground blast occurred in the same location that they had filmed the night before. It shook the buildings in the area, and the people that were right there were eyewitnesses, which we can talk about who they were later. And they all were saying it was a very interesting coincidence. Okay, go ahead, Richard.
Okay then. Well, of course, since then, since these things have gone live, with the explanation and the the reasons for us putting them on there, that they weren't there to titillate the public, they were for the safety of the man in question. I believe Bill will also confirm that elsewhere in Egypt and another town, another friend also had a similar threat, and there was a third person also had a threat made against them in the same fashion. So we knew.
And what you're saying here was that more than one person perhaps filmed what went on?
No, these are separated.
Okay, Richard, I'll answer that. One person was filming it, and what I can say is that he was assisted by others, and others were with him. He did, can say that he did dress up in a uniform that would allow him to get past certain people, so that he could get closer and get closer look at what was going on. And so because it was so dark, we really have the eyewitnesses that actually could see what was being taken, although it wasn't showing up in the film.
Okay.
So both the collaboration with the eyewitness.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very interesting detail. It's beginning to sound like a movie script. But no, that's just because, I have a background in Hollywood, so I'm easily swayed by stories like this. But at any rate, what I wanted to say is that what you guys did also was you you did some things to the film itself in order to make sure that it would not reveal the angle and therefore the house or the home or the place from which the film was taken. Isn't that right?
Yeah, this is Bill. That's correct. From the location that it was taken, it would reveal the source, so we wanted to protect that. But during the day, we have a recording of the exact spot of how it looks like in the daytime. We have an exact recording of what it looks like at dusk, and then we have the exact same location, what it looks like at night. We do have some people with high technology capability right now analyzing that and taking the darkness out. I'm meeting with the people next week, happen to be in Washington, D.C., and we're going to try and get that information released once we know that the person is safe and sound that did the original.
I would like to mention two things, Bill, that will add in on this. I noticed in the multitude of posts that have been flying about the various sites. One criticism that's come out is that the sound on it suggested that it was an independent piece of sound that had been stitched to the video. And I have to say that to filter the sound, I know Adrian jumped through hoops backwards to try and do his best in a short space of time with that. And he had the difficult task of trying to retain the background sounds of these guys moving about and talking, but trying to filter out the person who was taking the film and other people who were witnesses with him, so that their voices wouldn't be picked up to be identified. So sure, you know, if the sound sounded chopped about, it was synchronized as best possible to the original, but it was part of the original track, and of course the original movie shows that. And the other thing is, Bill, I want to pull you in on something, Bill. Perhaps you could mention about the cars.
Right, okay, thank you. This is Bill. What I was going to say is, we do have the section that was edited out that would show positively 100% the exact location, that there were other cars in parking lots, in the buildings in the front. And again, my understanding is I'm hoping that by this Sunday, I know where the person will be that in safe hands, that here in Chicago on Sunday, that information is going live and it will be on the website on Monday. It will confirm exactly what the location is, as well as the sounds and everything, minus the person's voice. That's all.
Okay, I was just wanted to put a word in here to really urge you to be particularly careful, regardless of how careful you think you're being. I'm afraid that this is an interesting, and therefore you have to be really, really careful. I mean, I don't actually know how the person can remain safe under these circumstances.
Well, the person that will be out is out of the country. All I'm trying to do is to verify the location. People are questioning us. How do you know the exact location? We're going to show the parking lot and the black cars that were running around and everything, and that it was not just a normal nighttime excavation operation.
Right.
That's all.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fine. Thank you very much. We can move on from here. So that describes briefly what you guys have done, what you got, and how the film, I guess, was handed to you. Was it also given to other people? Because I got a word today that somebody said it was handed to a couple other people and has appeared on other websites. Is that true?
They haven't come from us.
Okay, so
I'm not aware of that. I'm not aware of that.
You're not aware of that. Okay. Maybe that was wrong information. I don't know for sure. I just, somebody did mention that to me today.
Okay. Well, I'd like to find out if that was true. There is a good possibility. When I did ask the person, did I have permission to release it, and that person said yes, and that person may have given that to other people as well. So I will find out. I haven't been in contact with the person because I was waiting till I knew that he was safe in order to even make the contact.
Okay. That's fine. And perhaps the less contact you have, the better. So can you describe then what is also going on in general? And also, before you do that, can you talk about your background, your work that you've been doing out there, how long you've been working out at the plateau or in Egypt, and what both your backgrounds are, or all, I guess 5 of you. You've got 5 people.
Sure. All right, I'll start it again. This is Bill. I'm a 30-year civil engineer with construction background out of the East Coast area, and my last 5 years have been exclusive. I quit my engineering job in the D.C. area in 2005, and I have been working full-time for myself with this project in Egypt, and I have been to Egypt 30 times in the last 5 years. It was during the time period when I was doing my research in April of 2006, when I was working with Dr. Abbas and the Egyptians doing ground penetrating radar in the area. that I was interviewed with National Geographic's, which has gone live on TV internationally since that 5 years. And it was during that time that I was there that I met who is now my wife, who was associated with the Ground Penetrating Radar at Giza in 2006, and that's when we met. And because of her association with an identity of an area that she has indicated would be the location of the tomb, location of the Pharaoh of the Great Pyramid, we began to work jointly to be able to disclose that location.
Okay.
Now, Lucina only speaks Polish, so we're going to have a translator for her.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay. So, Lucy, they want to know just a little bit about who she is.
Lucyna, oni pytają, czy możesz powiedzieć,
Just take a minute here.
Pokrótce opowiedzieć o sobie.
Nazywam się Lucyna Łobos-Brown. Od 2006 roku jestem żoną Williama Brown.
Okay.
Lucyna is saying, I'm the translator. Lucyna is saying that she is married to Bill from 2006, and she introduced herself with her name, Lucyna Łobos-Brown.
Od właściwie 90 roku mam przekazy, czyli od śmierci klinicznej do tej pory.
From about 1990, Lucyna is experiencing telepathic communications, and she is extremely intuitive in that.
I moje przekazy, jakie dostawałam, zawsze dotyczyły Egiptu. Nigdy wcześniej nie interesowałam się Egiptem, faraonami, bo to dla mnie było obce.
All her telepathic communications were about Egypt and pharaohs, and she never had even any interest earlier to read about Egypt, about the history of Egypt, but from 1990 she started having different telepathic communications in that subject.
W 2000 roku te przekazy telepatyczne zaczęły się nasilać i zawsze dotyczyły Egiptu i zaczęło się to tak nawet precyzować i skupiać się na budowniczym piramidy. Ciągle słyszałam, podamy informacje, podamy lokalizację, gdzie się znajduje budowniczy piramidy.
From about 2000, the telepathic communications intensify, and obviously they were about Egypt, but mainly now they were about the builder of Great Pyramid, about the Cheops. And then she was getting the communication that later on they will reveal to her the site where is he buried.
Hello, over there?
Okay.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Let me ask you, Lucina, if you are part of the Polish group that was going into the labyrinth.
The name of the organization was in Polish Dar Światowida. So, but they are very loosely associated, both of them right now, with the organization. Mainly they are spending their own money, and they are not, and Lucina is not taking any salary from the organization.
No, I understand that. I just wanted to, because this is what you call documenting.
Yes.
the record. So
Okay.
when we ask for proper names of organizations and things like that, that's
Okay.
all we're doing. We're allowing researchers to
Okay.
find out whether or not such a group existed, whether or not you actually worked for them back in 2006 or whenever it was, and so on and so forth.
Yes. Well,
So
yeah.
we're
Well,
not,
yeah.
I'm not questioning you, I believe whatever you say. I'm just documenting this for the record here because we will have researchers that want to listen to this, and we want to make sure that they understand that what you say can be investigated.
Right. Okay. We would like to add to that we were working directly, really, with the University of Warsaw in Poland, who had the contract.
Okay,
So
that's right.
he
And
was doing the work, not us.
I understand. And did you happen to meet Patrick Gerald when you were there?
Yes, I know Patrick. I've met him several times. Yes.
Okay, just curious because we interviewed him, and he talked about the labyrinth. So that's
Right.
why I was curious because there will be a through line for people to investigate about that.
Okay.
Okay, so that's Lucina, and that's very interesting information, Lucina, and we will definitely want to come back to you and talk maybe more about that. Can we move on to Richard Gabriel and Judith Elter?
Yes, she was, and I am. I was a independent consultant working on that project for 2 years, and she was also working with me, assisting me and the group into understanding where to do ground penetrating radar tests.
Okay, and this Polish group, what is their official name?
Yes, of course. Are you hearing me, first of all right now?
I am, yes.
Yes,
Yes,
I hear
okay.
you.
Okay, good, fine. Yes, by all means. Well, my background's perhaps a little bit more mundane, or the both of us, and we call ourselves just simple messengers. We just followed a personal calling. We both come from sort of extraordinary backgrounds in that we both followed pathways that have been peppered since earliest memories with what I call supernormal experiences, out-of-body experiences, and strange leanings in certain direction towards Egypt, always being pulled towards Egypt. I used the metaphor when we were speaking before, Kerry. I think it's fairly accurate, very much like Dreyfus in the film Close Encounters, where he had the calling with all those people to the Table Mountain. Well, it's very much the same as that, drawn to Egypt. And many years ago now, well, I say many years, 10 years or more ago now, when Judith and I met, we found that we were for each other twin flames. That it's a story all on its own, to be perfectly honest, which really would detract from what we're saying here tonight. But I would say that from that point on, we found that when we were together in Egypt, even more strange things would happen. We found that we could move about below the radar, quietly pursuing our calling to find out exactly what it was we were supposed to be doing there, almost invisible. We found we didn't violate anything. We had no wish to violate anything, simply to learn, understand, and find our purpose. And we found that we were taken, shown into places that people shouldn't really be shown into. We found people appear to us. I remember one very tall guy appearing to us on one visit, well over 6 foot. He looked like a Bedouin, but he was very, very tall in a brown galabeah. And he singled us out from the tourists and led us into the Western Mastabas and told us in broken English, you go in there, nobody bother you. And we didn't, nobody did. We spent half a day in there. And afterwards another guy met with us on the plateau, bumped into us, said that he'd been waiting to meet us. And we were astonished. There's always the wow factor, but we've learned now long since to go along with these things because they're just normal part of our lives together. And he said that he had something to show us. We didn't question it. We just went with the flow. But as we were walking along with him, he was chatting with us. He said to us, "You know my son." I said, how we don't even know you." Well, it happened. From his broken English, he was gesticulating and indicating towards the old headquarters, Zahi's offices and so on, before they started the rebuilding. And I remembered that we'd had some photographs developed from the previous day. We'd met all the staff over there and all the officials, and I had the photographs in my pocket. So I brought these out and thinking perhaps I could get some sort of bearing with him. We went through the photographs and he pointed, yes, him. And it was young plainclothes policeman who was one of the personal bodyguards there to the office. And we struck up a wonderful friendship with him. How in hell the whole thing was pulled together. But nonetheless, there we were with this guy. Well, he showed us, and he took us down in amongst where there were literally dozens of policemen walking around in a barbed wire area down below Mincora where the rock quarries are. It was an area where Mark Lena was working. It happened on that day he wasn't there. Well, the guy, he just trundled along with us behind. He said, no, you want to take photographs, no problem. So we took photographs as we went along, and he took us inside. He showed us the shafts. He pointed to the shafts. He showed us where the shafts led down to the intersections below, the tunnels down below that we later saw. He took us round the side, up the alleyway, places where from above the tourists look down and you can't see. You haven't got a clue what's down there because your field of vision doesn't let you see what's really there. But he took us around and we found ourselves said, you want to come? And into pitch darkness, we didn't have torches or anything. He grabbed a newspaper and set fire to it, grabbed other bits of paper along the way. We scrambled down one level taking photographs, then another level taking photographs, then another level taking photographs. And the wow factor was increasing all the time. He said, you come back, we show you more. He took us out and showed us other things. And he was going to take us to show us as he described it, clearly a tunnel that was a water sump. And he explained that's where the dinghies were taken through into the lake underneath. He said, I'll take you there now. And we actually had an appointment with a very high-level person, very, very lovely person with the Coptic Church, whom we had to see late that afternoon. We couldn't break that appointment, despite our great desire to be taken where he wanted to take us. We were just there for the ride. Oh, incidentally, I would say that on the way, the chief of the police there, I'm not even going to describe him because that would single him out, but those there know who I'm talking about. A guy, very authoritative guy that everybody knows and recognises. He took a couple of strides in our direction at one stage, in amongst all these police with a tent there in the middle of all the barbed wire compound. And the guy that was leading us spotted it, and he took a few paces over to him, and they spoke for a couple of minutes. The guy came over and shook our hands, and he said, go, everything okay, go. So that was it. We wandered off again in tow to our guide, whoever he was. We climbed through some more barbed wire, went up the side, and then shown in some other places. We got hundreds and hundreds, thousands, we got over 10,000 photographs, for goodness sake, of all these adventures. Now, I'm just describing a couple of incidents, but, when we left that chap that day, and we said, we're really, really sorry, we obviously want to see whatever you want to show us, for whatever reason it's being shown. And he said, look, he shook our hands, he looked closely, he didn't want anything from us at all. Like the other guy didn't want anything from us at all. He said, it's okay, he said, you'll be back here again. I'll be seeing you here again. And he went off, shaking our hands warmly, and we went on our way. Those are just a couple of instances, but that's the flavour of the thing that's happened to us for years of our going back over there, seeking a destiny, if you like. I mean, in the Great Pyramid, I found this peculiar ability to intone a certain sound. That was always a party trick when I was a youngster. Go into a building with tiles and so on. I could hit a particular vibrational note that seemed to set everything off in a very loud harmonic resonance. I didn't know what it was. It was just a little stupid party trick. But when I eventually got to the Great Pyramid, I realized that there was more to it than that, because, cut a long story short, with friends there, we went in there to experiment in the King's Chamber. By then, we'd gone through all the gambit of experimentation and development in out-of-body experience. And in the King's Chamber, we'd arranged and we'd been given permission. Zai wasn't there that time. He was due back from America in a couple of days' time. And we arranged through someone who was very friendly in the offices there and who was believing of us to go into the King's Chamber for as long as we wanted. Well, on the day, arrangements changed. We were given a guide and he took us to see the boats and other things, again, where tourists wouldn't go. And when it came time for us to go there, there was a bit of a kerfuffle because we learned that Zai was due back a little bit quicker. And everybody's attitude changed. The fear crept back, it seemed, I have to say. So they sort of hustled us in and said, look, you know, there's no time. You can't have all the time that you want this time. We're very sorry, and so on.
Okay, now remember that this is going over the internet, and so that all of these people are going to hear all of this, right?
Yeah, sure, no, it's all right. I mean, this is all written up anyway. You know, it's no harm in what I'm saying, for goodness sake, you know.
I know, except that, you know, we don't want people getting in trouble, and so on and so forth. So, at any rate, go ahead.
Yeah, Richard.
Yeah.
I'd like to insert one thing.
Sure, go ahead.
Understand that all of these places that Richard and Judith went to ended up being the exact pinpoint locations that later identified the information that we're now releasing to the people.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
I want to say that the synchronicity of what Richard was doing and Judith was doing and I and Lucina and everybody, it all has now come, 5 years later, has come to a head where all of this stuff is now being motioned and funneled into what needs to be shown to the people.
Okay, now at this point, other than, let's see, I guess, unless there's anything else you want to add as far as your background goes, Judith or Richard, then we would move on to Adrian and just get a brief background from Adrian as to who he is and what his contribution is here.
Well, I'm a 26-year-old designer from Poland. I don't have such a profound background as Bill and Richard does. Basically, all my life is all about websites, web design, and technical details. I've never been to Egypt before. So that's basically it. I'm just making all this look and work as it should be.
Okay, so you're kind of handling the technical end for them. Have you been to Egypt yet or not?
Not yet. I plan to go there this year.
I see. Okay, wonderful. Okay, well, that's fabulous. I think I've been there 2 or 3 times. I'm not sure in this life, anyway.
Adrian's very modest, by the way.
Okay, very good. I myself have a very intense attraction to Egypt, and always have, and I have a lot of past life memories from there as well. So at this point, let's get into what else you can share before the conference, because I know you're going to do a conference in Chicago, and there you're going to present your findings up to this time, I understand. But you don't want to do that here on this audio from what I get. But what is it you can share with us other than anything else? We can certainly talk about that incident in the September, I believe it was, that seems to have some kind of relationship to what the goings on the plateau. And I would like to touch on that. But I'd also like to know, is there anything else that you guys wanted to convey aside from just giving a little background here?
Well, I'm going to hand it to Bill on this, but I'll give Bill just a very quick intro to this. You already know from the chat we had yesterday that we're of the complete understanding and belief that there is a huge labyrinthian system of passageways, tunnels that go back to an ancient time below ground. Of course, lots of riches and things have been brought out already, and there is a lot more to be found. We've actually pinpointed so much below ground and have the evidence for that. And I'm going to pass to Bill now because he's going to give you a little bit more that we haven't revealed up until now. And I think you're going to find this rather interesting.
Okay, thank you, Richard. This is Bill. I've spent the last 6 months working what we call the incident that happened in September of 2009, in which 6 men died under mysterious conditions. I was able to go in and work my way in to finding out exactly what happened, how it happened, and I talked specifically with the people that were involved with it. One of the things that is going to be going live is that we are now putting a professional production that will come out after the presentation on Sunday that will reveal basically exactly what did happen and how it happened. But what we are able to say at this point is that because of the background that both my wife Lucina had and I had been working at Giza for 5 years, I was well aware of that particular area. In the 5 months we were there, we were able to go in and do secretly, as that nobody knew we were doing it, and we can say that on the air, that we were looking at purchasing a property, and we wanted to understand if the building was solid enough to be able to build on, and we were able to do some ground penetrating radar, and that radar ended up revealing a lot that was underground in the area. Because of the information that we do now have, we have been able to verify that the information that many people have come forward to talk about, especially, for example, the Edgar Cayce readings, where I was taking a lot of my information on about the underground location of the burial tomb of the builder, or the Pharaoh Khufu of the Great Pyramid. We are releasing now detailed information, ground penetrating radar, to verify that that tomb is in the area. I have been underground in some of the areas and seen and eyewitness things, and we're going to talk about that on Sunday. And we also have ground penetrating radar that we will show under the highest technology that we have, large amounts of underground treasures of gold and statues. Everything that has been verified is going to be shown on Sunday. So what we were able to find out, that exactly what did happen in September, why it happened, who was involved, and I can tell you that that was just a typical example of other places in Egypt that I was aware that they were going on.
So, in
Richard?
other words, what you're saying is that they've been digging in even private residences and so on and so forth, and
Yes.
that you're suggesting, I guess, that there have been other incidents of coercion or worse in regard to things found, possibly?
Yes, people have become millionaires overnight. Basically, what happens is the villages are privately funded for them to go into their own backyard, in their own basement, and to dig and to find things. And then those items are in trade given. They're giving a small amount of money for that, and then those items are passed on. And I do have to say that the authorities are very limited in being able to stop anything, because it's such a business for many, many people. And so I was eyewitnesses to a lot of that was going on. And then when the incident did happen in September, it was basically a threat to everybody in the village for them to shut up, because the word was getting out.
Okay, and in that incident, just to reiterate the brief information that we do know, if I understand it, there were 6 people that were buried alive, basically,
Yeah,
in an
that's right.
underground trench that they had dug beneath
No,
your
no,
house?
not the trench. No, 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 no. The house that we stayed in there, very briefly to recap the circumstances, the house that we stayed in there, Kerry, right next to that is where the shaft was dug. I mean, essentially, and Bill will confirm this himself in just a moment, as a result of some material that was absconded from Bill, that pinpointed that area as being interesting for persons unknown. There was clearly big money put behind an operation to do an illegal dig there to try and get to it. Well, they couldn't use the house right where we were staying. We actually heard that there was a tunnel from the house where we were at, although we weren't shown anything. We found out more about that later. It wasn't fully discovered even when the other shaft was collapsed. But in any event, an illegal dig was set up, a very hastily set up dig. They couldn't use the house where the guys were recruited from because it was a bit of a lodging house. There were some guys that are in the dig from that place. And some of the chambers below where the dig eventually reached actually went under that house, and that house is in a state of collapse now. But in any event, they used the house next door to that, which was owned by one lady and her son, and they sunk a shaft, obviously without any great engineering expertise, but it was fair enough. They got underground, and the story we were told was that some money was attempted to be made on the side from what was found down there immediately. One of the guys went out to Sharm el-Sheikh to try and do a black market sale, and he was picked up there by the police. He was given an inverted commas interrogation, and the police were then able to get the whole plot. Well, they can let the operation continue apparently for a few days, and they obviously made a move on it. They must have done. But the next thing that happened was that the people that we know there, that we stayed with, they were woken from their beds, and they told us that others were too, because there were extremely loud bangs, like they thought it was like car door slamming. They were a bit surprised and puzzled. They went out to look what was going on. There were no cars there, and there's not often many cars there anyway. Well, they knew there was something of a dig going on close by. Most of the villagers know what's going on somewhere out there, but they thought nothing more of it. Well, one of the guys whose son was involved had a phone call next morning, I believe about 10 o'clock, from a mysterious voice to tell him that the tunnels had collapsed. So he did a dash to the site, found the tunnel collapsed, and started to try and dig down to the guys, and we could hear below ground. And he recruited some friends. They tried to dig down, couldn't get to them because the stuff was falling back on them again. It was sand, of course. So it was in the afternoon before they officially alerted the authorities. They appeared, and it apparently took them a few days, 4 days, I think we were quoted, for them to mobilise to dig an access shaft to get down to them. They brought in heavy equipment and they knocked the wall down to the house. I mean, we're not talking about a 6-story office block here. We're talking about frail, flimsy villagers' houses in the village of Nazlet. So anyway, it took 4 days or so, I believe, for them to clear the site and dig down. In the meantime, we are told, and I'm going to tell you something else tonight I didn't tell you last night. We were told that over that time, both they and the villagers, some 30 villagers were quarantined from the area. They sealed it off. But of course, some villagers were looking on. Even children were getting in, but the children get everywhere. There were some children quite distressed. But they were talking, shouting down, and these guys were getting weaker and weaker until they went to silence. When they dug down, incidentally, the one thing I was going to tell you was, and I'm going to withhold this at this time because I'm sure it'll all come out if it goes to an official inquiry, if heads roll over this. But we were told categorically by a villager that a most senior person also came and actually conversed down to these guys before they were finally not heard. Now, they dug a hole down eventually. They didn't dig the hole and bring the guys out. The witnesses reported to us that they started pulling out goods, exquisite sarcophagi and statues in gold and all sorts of things, reported to us. Okay, there's controversy about what they did or didn't bring out of there, but I can tell you this, that when we were on the site there, the guy who we trusted there said it was describing intimately exactly how the things were handled as they were brought up out of this shaft, how difficult it was to get them up out of the shaft and into the vehicles. They brought an ambulance and they loaded things into the ambulance so that it would be disguised. The sarcophagus, he described hands-on how it was lifted. He said, look, 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 he said, and he took us to the ground and he rummaged about on the ground and showed us some tiles, some of these strange ceramic-looking tiles, little mosaic things. He said that they were on the sarcophagus and got knocked off as it was brought up. And we got 1 or 2 samples and they're being tested. And he said that the children were really distressed because they didn't start bringing the bodies out until they got all this stuff out. And when they started bringing the bodies out, the reports were that there was a horrendous stench came from the pit and the chambers below. And the other thing was, someone, a religious person of some kind, was brought in to conduct a ceremony to sort of appease any violation that might have taken place spiritually, and that there was a goat sacrifice made, was to let blood go down over it in blessing. But it was reported to us by more than one person that down there it was awash with blood, unexplainable completely. And a comment that was made to us by a villager, that the amount of blood that was down there, it would have had to have been a donkey with its throat cut to have produced that amount of blood. Totally unexplained. I'm just reporting what was told to us.
Yeah, Richard, I'd like to elaborate on that a little bit. When I was working with the Egyptian officials working directly with the Supreme SCA authority, they did give me all the pictures that they took down inside the 2 chambers where the bodies were found, and all those pictures had been posted on our website, and that there was extreme amounts of blood, many things covered with plastic bags, and everything completely filled inside, actually dirt and sand actually brought in to cover what was there. So we have released those pictures to show exactly what it did look like inside.
There was one other little twist that I can add to it. Again, reported. I have to say it's not our words. We're simply reporting on what we were told. We were told by more than one villager that the scenario ran like this, that men in plain clothes, whom they believed to be police, came to the site in the dead of night. They called for these villagers or these tunnelers, these hapless guys that were down there, to come out. The guys were terrified. They wouldn't come out because they knew what would happen to them. So they stayed down there as a standoff. And because they wouldn't come out, explosives were dropped down the shaft to blast them and bury them in there.
Okay, Richard, Richard, can I add to that? That one of the things that we have found that's noted was that because that explosion did occur in September, and we were aware of that fact, when we heard that explosion again at the other site in front of the Sphinx, of where we had taken the pictures the night before, it seemed to be the same thing, and we were a little bit concerned that the fact that the explosion might have been used to either get into something that they were attempting to get into, or an explosion to cover up anything that might have happened. So, that had happened on several other illegal excavations, and it seemed to be a pattern.
Okay.
So that was one of the things that alerted us.
That's
There's
very
one other thing I can add to it, actually. There's one other tiny little twist I've remembered now. And that is that the site was left open as it was for weeks into months, just as it was. People could come and go, photograph and so on. They did have a staging area up above on the other side of the wall, and they did have a spotlight up there that came on at night time, and they put guards on the wall to walk backwards and forwards to keep an eye on who was down there. But eventually, I think because there were a lot of people talking about it out on the web and so on, they tidied the area up out of sorts. They sort of very, very roughly backfilled to the holes. You'll see all the pictures of this on the site. I've got them all on the website, pages and pages of them, all the pictures and the whole story. But in any event, what they eventually did, and at our last understanding, they got some of these sort of rough, rusty railings, like from a farmyard somewhere, and stuck it around to sort of as a rough quarantine of the area. But our confidant there, our main confidant there, when we were last there, just walking past, excitedly, he said, "It's true." He said, "It's true." When they brought them out, he said, he told us this right after the event. He said, the clothes that they brought up there, he said, they buried them under the topsoil on top of the ground outside, just to disguise the fact that they were all covered in blood. And I couldn't help but notice when we were there, as they'd been backfilling, they'd raked a lot of ground over. I've actually got the photographs of it, and you can see all the clothing sticking out of the ground. Presumably, according to their allegations, that is the clothing belonging to the dead men.
Incredible. So they let the public go in the site after they cleaned it out?
No, good God, no. No. That area, believe me, you don't go in there easily, not before.
Oh, okay.
It's because, as I say, we've got this sort of invisibility thing.
I do want to say one thing. The shaft was accessible, but it was guarded by the police. When the people in SCA had given me copies of the inside the tomb, the measurements, sketches of everything, Richard did go in and he climbed down that shaft and he took pictures and then came back out of the shaft, but only at the bottom, and they were different than what the pictures that had been given to me. I did interview people who had been inside. I have detailed video camera recordings of who was inside, what was taken, and I can tell you what was shown in the movies was nothing compared to what was taken, and they gave me a list of the large amounts of gold and gold beds and everything that was taken, and it took a long time to take that stuff out. Okay, go ahead, Richard.
Yes, and all that time, of course, the bodies were waiting to be recovered.
Yeah. One of the things I do want to say, though, is if you look at the couple of the pictures that are on the website, in one particular place there are 2 drill holes in the stone. And the person who had literally been down inside there said that they could see through those 2 holes, and they could see that there was a large open cavity on the opposite side of the concrete wall, and that was their original attempt, was to actually break through that wall when the operation was stopped. And that area that they were looking into is a part of all the ground penetrating radar tests that we actually did in 2006. And we do have ground penetrating radars that actually show what's underground in that entire area. And that's why those people, why that operation was stopped. And I have asked through official channels to see if we could open that area, because we know exactly what's there. And that's the real purpose of why we're making this disclosure available publicly now, to try and get the public to please urge the Egyptians to make this an official excavation project so that the world can actually see what is actually there. Go ahead.
Perhaps, Bill, you could elaborate from this point as a good starting point on the implications that we know for the extended area there, and perhaps the extra bit of information that we wish to give on that.
Okay. When we were able to have our ground penetrating radar tests that I did myself, I mean, I was there to have it done. We also went back and had them done a second time to verify, to make sure that there is an incredible large underground tunnel network throughout that whole area. We have confirmation that in 1994, those tunnels were found directly in front of the Sphinx area where they're now excavating. Those tunnels do connect. We have the GPR to show that they do connect. And that is the same area in which the explosion took place on April the 28th at 10 o'clock in the morning. So everything
Bill,
was tying
Bill,
everything to
Bill.
itself.
Bill, could you repeat that, please? I particularly wish you to repeat that, please, for all those people who've been writing on the websites and so on and saying that, no, this is just guys doing something at night time because it's a little more comfortable than the daytime. Could you just repeat what I know and what we both know? We have the results about what we know. We have the proof, the results, the GPR scans that show and repeat what you just said.
Okay, we are releasing on Sunday movies and films, ground penetrating radar, and engineering drawings. I have satellite images. I have GPS coordinates accurate to 8 decimal point. I can tell you right now that that area is entirely being reviewed by satellites now, and that entire area will be a major excavation in the near future.
Okay.
All of this is going to be released on May the 9th here in Chicago.
Okay, you know, I'm looking at your website right now, and I am looking for the photographs you're talking about of this illegal dig, and I'm wondering where is it located on the site, just to make it clear for people.
Richard.
Okay, then, yeah. Go to on the main index page.
Yes.
When you go down through to the Geomatrix presentations, on the left-hand side list, you'll see that it picks up to give the dig. It makes reference to the dig, the illegal dig. And if anybody starts into that and follows the thread through, it tells the whole story. The pages lead on from one another, and there are 3 galleries of dozens and dozens of photographs there of the whole thing.
Okay, so you're talking about where it says key to the Geomatrix pages, and then on the left-hand side under that, it says account of the illegal dig and associated illegal dig artifacts and illegal dig picture gallery. Just for people to be able to find this a little more easily, simply because you have more than one index, and it's a little unclear as to what goes to where. And I see you've got several different things that you've investigated. I guess many different sites here, from what I can tell.
Dozens.
Yeah, that's correct. And all of that information was given to me by the people that were actually doing it.
Okay, when you say people that were doing the digs?
The illegal digs that were going on, I was able to get, they took those movies themselves, and I was able to get those movies. They actually gave them to me, as well as pictures of the items that were being sold on the black market.
Okay.
I was actually taken to the office where these people work and asked, especially the picture of the sarcophagus that looked like the royal king at the illegal site in September. They specifically showed me the movie that everybody claims to be a fake, and they asked me, is this the sarcophagus of this Pharaoh Khufu? And at that time, there had been a $5 million price tag put on it, but they were holding out for $10 million, and I just said, based on the information that I already knew, that it was not, that it was a high priest associated with Khufu, and that there are many more of those buried in that same area. When that happened, they lost that sale, but I did understand that the sale did go through at $5 million. So these items that you're seeing on the site is real evidence of things that are ongoing in Egypt, all over Egypt. And this is what we're trying to get out to the public. And the biggest reason why we're talking about it is because Richard has now gone on the website to show the Cave of the Bats, and now that has been steel barred, and we don't want all of those items that are in that area to be removed, and Richard has the pictures of them.
Yes, they're up on site, Carrie. I have to say to you, if I could be allowed just to mention it,
yes.
We're extremely worried about that site because the photographs that I took in there are very detailed, and I can say firsthand now that those caverns, they are absolutely stocked full to the brim with artifacts.
Isn't that incredible?
Let me tell you this, and I'm going to go on record now to say it, the walls in places are covered with very ancient wall paintings.
Wow.
That cave is an absolute, it's a treasure, it's an Egyptian treasure, it's a world treasure. It is absolutely filled to the brim with artifacts and things that need to be catalogued and taken out carefully. And why not report it as it's done? And incidentally,
and this is
down
called
below,
the cave of the bats, is what you call
well,
it?
it's called, I mean, Andrew Collins, who, if, shall we say, in fairness, rediscovered the cave. I have to tell you, jump back in time a little bit. When we first started working with Bill, and he was showing us the hotspots for the geomatrix, the blueprint plan, the cave of the birds, as Andrew named it, he discovered it from Salt and Caviglia's earlier work when the records were republished, and full credit for that. But when I was working with Bill, with Judith and Lucy earlier, Bill had already shown us all the hotspots on the ground for the Giza Geomatrix plan, which was the original blueprint that was used to lay out all the pyramid fields, and the reason why we could take from it as well. But when we were checking all the hotspots out and deciding which ones we knew about, which had to be checked, Bill had already earmarked that particular spot as a major exit entrance area down into the underground. And it was on our list. We just didn't get to it before Andrew, which is fair enough. But nonetheless, once again, it wasn't a planned occasion on that day where we ended up out there. It is worth, for the record, explaining that we were just on a loose end. We had a free day. We went up onto the plateau, and once again, we got this calling, this drawing. We both sort of looked at each other. We both had the same thought in our head and said, "Okay, we'll wander over there." We weren't prepared at all. And sure enough, we just walked and did. We were encountered by someone who was very friendly, took no notice of it, and we just carried on. And we found ourselves within minutes, 20 minutes from leaving home, we were standing inside the chambers that everybody had been talking about for God knows how long. But we did have cameras with us. So we went in there and sort of ran the gauntlet of the bats hammering into us as we went through the entrance. Once again, no wish to disturb anything at all, just to investigate, increase the knowledge, take records. So we photographed all the way through there to the tube at the end. That tube there undoubtedly does go down inside and under the plateau. It is an entrance. I'd nail my hat to the mast on that. But going through there, there are simulacrum there that alludes to time of Agatha Demon, guardian to the underworld and representative of. There are other icons throughout. There's gold in there, we believe, that we photographed and saw, and all these cave depictions and wall depictions and so on. Also, I have to say that in the main tomb itself, there were two sets of steps, one either side to the right and left of the entrances in an alcove. Originally, when Andrew had been in there, they'd been all closed up with sand. But in the meantime, before everything got out of hand there, the team had obviously been in there and they'd been excavating down underneath. We went down and had a quick look and just took some photographs. We found 3-4 chambers. The air was full of dust. Much had been cleared. There was huge chambers down there. And we couldn't see much because we did the whole thing in pitch black, apart from our camera and a tiny little torch that we had. And when we got home, we were astonished at what we found in the camera. The camera had taken these high-quality photographs, and down there in the back end of these caverns, clearly they extended further and they needed massively more excavation. You'll see in the pictures there, although it's grainy, you can quite clearly see a huge, it's either a sarcophagus or it's a wall relief showing Sokar on with the crocodile head, the connection there. But in any event, we took all these pictures and put them on the web. And since then, of course, since those pictures and since the hoo-ha, the political hoo-ha, which really we weren't interested in, we still aren't interested in. We just want the damn thing to be made public. It doesn't belong to one person. But what happens? Well, within a few days, iron grills across the whole lot. And the workers are in there working away like crazy. Nobody knows what damage is being done. Nobody knows what's being destroyed. Nobody knows what's being salted away like it's been done on the other sites, like down below the Sphinx. Nobody knows. And still the speculators go, oh, they're just doing this for safety, they're just doing that for safety. Absolutely.
Okay,
because
and you've taken pictures also here. I see of a lot of orbs in these caverns,
oh
which
Lord,
is
yes.
quite interesting. Very interesting pictures of orbs. And what you're calling this is the Tomb of the Birds
Well, we
and
say the
Cavern of
bats,
the
you know,
Bats.
because it's full of bats.
Okay, but on the website so that people can find, because I was having trouble finding it under the name Cavern of the Bats,
Yes.
because the links are actually called Tomb of the Birds. But I do see that you've got lots of orbs. There are some very interesting carvings, as you're saying, and also apparently gold and so on. Very interesting. Now, the location of this dig in this cavern, where is this exactly?
Oh crumbs! It's about 5 minutes away from Kafra, the Pyramid 2. It's just
Really?
set
So
behind that. It's on
it's
the
still on the
on.
plateau.
Oh yes, it's up on the plateau at the top end.
Oh,
Uh,
incredible.
you'll see it. It's marked on. It's in the website there as well. The location. Again, there's no secret to it. I mean, why should there be any secret to any of this? For goodness' sake, if you'll allow me, I'll make the very simple point, Kerry, that same as I made yesterday. You can go on websites, archaeological websites, news sites, and so on, and almost every other day you'll see another photo shoot, another blog entry, another backslapping exercise with people with big grins, with nice tables of food, and so on. There's a lot of money and effort put to these things, and it's all publicity exercise and so on. And it's not particularly to put that down. But hey, come on. If that much effort can be put into the backslapping, surely to God the same effort could be put into having a trusted, qualified person, stenographer if you like, in the field to catalogue and have a look and record what's going on and post this on a weekly update, a weekly ongoing update of progress with photographs. Why
Right.
not?
Well, this is not what. Well, it's obviously much more political than that, and
course
there are things at stake, both in sort of shallow digs as well as much deeper. I'm quite sure of that. So you guys have come across some amazing stuff. You've been very dedicated in your searching and your documenting. It would be very interesting to hear what happens when you do your presentation. What I'd like to do is wrap this up now and then come back, leaving people to investigate and ponder as we mount this on the web as soon as we can. Hopefully, I've gotten this recording intact. And that remains to be seen after all these craziness that's been going on. But you guys have a recording as well, hopefully. So if mine fails, I'll let you know, and maybe you can send me yours.
Yeah, of
And we'll
course.
get it up there for you. Is there any other details or last minute statements that any of you want to make before we close this off, and just in general to prepare people for what you're going to be presenting on May 9th, or anything else for that matter?
Do you want to come back, Bill?
Yeah, thank you, Bill. The main thing that I want to say that on May the 9th in Chicago, we're going to leave it up to the people to, it basically says is, you be the judge. We're going to show you all the evidence that we have, and you be the judge. You tell us whether you really believe that this is true. We are now opening up and showing that the drawings that we've been using and come up with has now been verified and actually shown in Dr. Hawass's one of his own books that actually shows this entire royal palace area is there, and that is it really the tomb of the pharaoh that's never been found before. So we're going to present that evidence on Sunday and talk about who Khufu is and why it's important that we find him right now.
Okay, well that sounds fascinating. Is there anybody else that wants to say anything else while we've just got you right here for the moment?
I would just say, Kerry, that area of the village, perhaps one good thing that will come out of this. People have jumped to early wrong conclusions and criticised in a minority, but the minority are always loud regarding the film and things that we've shown so far. But I would say now, from this point forward, that area of the village, that whole area of the plateau, I hope that everybody, every eye that could possibly be, is focused on that area, so that it isn't just one person catching something, so that they can't even blink without somebody sees and reports it. That's what we want. We want the publicity focused on there, so that if there's anything going on, if they've got nothing to hide, then there's no problem, is there?
Exactly. Okay, well, this is fascinating, and we would also love to hear more from Lucina, so perhaps she can talk to us a bit more about what she's gotten, what she's seen after you do your presentation. So why don't we reconvene, I guess, sometime next week?
Okay, that sounds good. We're going. We have been requested to be in Washington area, working with some very high-level people, assisting us and looking at all of the evidence that we have. And those people have indicated that they will take the necessary steps and controls to see that what is going to happen in the future, the public will know. So we'll be back next Thursday night.
Okay.
So it has to be after that. We can link up at night. I'll be in contact with Richard. I know that we're probably Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night. We're probably out, so it may have to be after that.
Okay. Well, let's stay in touch, and we can
Yeah.
settle on a time and a day.
Yeah,
or
and Lucy definitely has a lot to be able to share with everybody. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you all. This has been fascinating. Please do sort of be careful, even with the so-called officials that you're working with on this situation, simply because I can assure you that if there's anything that they want control over, they will manage to get that from you. So, but good luck with everything, and I hope to hear from you again after you do your presentation.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Thank
and
you very much. Yes.
let's all give our websites here. This is Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot, and our website is projectcamelot.org or projectcamelotportal.com, and I encourage you to take a look at everything we've got on the site. Richard and Bill, why don't you go ahead and give your site names
Okay.
and explain whatever else you need.
Sure, yes. Well, anybody who wants to come see, both sites are actually bolted together. They can be reached independently. I'll give you the two addresses, and you can choose either way. It's richardgabriel.info, and just as it sounds in lowercase, richardgabriel.info, and the gizamap.com. One will lead to the other will lead to the first, and you can gain entry either way. Okay, we'll welcome you there.
Okay, thank you all. It's been great talking with you, and this is very, very fascinating.
Okay, good night.
Many
Thank you.
thanks for the time, yes.
No
Appreciate
problem.
it very much, Gary.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye for now. Thank you.
This is Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot, and I am doing an audio interview with Richard Gabriel and Bill Brown, and we have a few other people on the call as well with us. They're partners, which are Lucina Lobos Brown, and we've got Judith Elter, and we've also got Adrian Dudkowitz. I'm not sure if I said that right. Dudovich, okay. And we're doing sort of a conference call here about the mysterious goings-on at the Giza Plateau, and everyone has been very gracious enough to come do this audio with me after we did do an experimental live stream that didn't quite work out audio-wise. So we're giving it a shot with the audio here. And then we're going to follow this up with hopefully possibly booking some radio time in which we can actually have something of a conference on, in a live setting in the future once your presentation on May 9th is done. But in the meantime, you are coming forward to give some background as to the goings-on on the Giza Plateau, what's been happening there, and also your backgrounds. So if, let's see, either Richard or Bill Brown, one of you should start off, perhaps.
Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah,
Richard,
sure. Okay. Richard speaking first. Yes. Yes, we spoke yesterday, Kerry, and I'm more than happy to cover a little bit of the ground to give a very brief summary of where we got to with this. We do seem to
Very close to me, and I knew that he wasn't making anything up. So when we released that, it was a little bit premature, but we did it for his own safety. What was added to that was, although we couldn't guarantee what was going on that night, at 10 o'clock that morning, a huge underground blast occurred in the same location that they had filmed the night before. It shook the buildings in the area, and the people that were right there were eyewitnesses, which we can talk about who they were later. And they all were saying it was a very interesting coincidence. Okay, go ahead, Richard.
Okay then. Well, of course, since then, since these things have gone live, with the explanation and the the reasons for us putting them on there, that they weren't there to titillate the public, they were for the safety of the man in question. I believe Bill will also confirm that elsewhere in Egypt and another town, another friend also had a similar threat, and there was a third person also had a threat made against them in the same fashion. So we knew.
And what you're saying here was that more than one person perhaps filmed what went on?
No, these are separated.
Okay, Richard, I'll answer that. One person was filming it, and what I can say is that he was assisted by others, and others were with him. He did, can say that he did dress up in a uniform that would allow him to get past certain people, so that he could get closer look at what was going on. And so, because it was so dark,
well, that's
we really have the eyewitnesses that actually could see what was being taken, although it wasn't showing up in the film.
Okay.
So it was a collaboration with the eyewitness.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very interesting detail. It's beginning to sound like a movie script.
Yeah, stirred up a little bit of a hornet's nest, don't we? There we were, going along merrily on our way, working below the radar, doing our research, establishing the fact that there is more to be found and discovered below the Giza Plateau. More frequently than ever, bumping heads with those there who were under license but quite secretly doing things that they weren't supposed to be doing, or perhaps that the public would prefer to know about. And then everything blew up. Our schedule was thrown to one side because we were contacted, or Bill was contacted with some film that was taken at night, a few nights ago under the full moon, where there was a heck of a lot of activity going on under cover of darkness on the plateau and the area between the kiosks where people go in there and the area in front of and below the Sphinx, which has been an open excavation for a year or so now under SCA license. And there were heavy loaders there, sort of high loaders, JCB type machines with forks on the front, and they were lifting, this is what was reported to us, they were lifting items which were identified as looking like chests, sarcophagi, statues and other things. They were loading them onto heavy transporters, possibly even military trucks. And this was filmed with just equipment that was being held by the hands. There were witnesses there as it was being filmed. And the film was promptly passed to us because we are with a large company of friends all over the plateau, and I have to say on both sides of the fence, if I could put it that way, who are very eager for the public to know exactly what's going on there. But when we received this film, we took a look at it, and we realized that the film was very grainy, it was very dark, it wasn't really Hollywood quality, but there was sufficient recorded on the film to show that there was something going on at night there that was questionable at the very least. Also, the film recorded exactly where it was taken. It recorded who was taking it. That was very dangerous. It meant that the film couldn't be shown for those reasons anyway, because it would have brought harm to the person who took it. The film was very grainy, as I say, although in places it did show some things. So we thought, well, the quality anyway isn't all that good, so we can't really put it out. But we took a couple of still frames from it, and we put these on our website, which I'll mention now and perhaps get a chance later again to mention. The main website's richardgabriel.info with the gizamap.com embedded within it, a separate animated interactive website that's bolted to it. But we put these two stills on there enhanced that showed the forklifts lifting things, which can quite clearly be made out in those photographs. And next morning we were contacted with frantic phone calls, or Bill was contacted initially, and
Richard, let me talk about that, okay?
Yeah, I think it's probably best. First hand from Bill.
This is Bill. When we put the first two pictures on Richard's Gabriel's website, I immediately sent those two pictures to Dr. Hawas's website, asking, please, could you explain to me what is going on? It doesn't look very, it looks like something's going on, and people are asking questions. The next morning, I received a very important email from a very high source that I work with, and they indicated that whoever took the film was in extreme danger, and that the only way that we could possibly even help that person is to get it out publicly. And although we weren't quite ready to release what we couldn't release everything because of who took it and the witnesses. The witness that was there was extremely 100% very bad.
But no, that's just because, I have a background in Hollywood, so I'm easily swayed by stories like this. But at any rate, what I wanted to say is that what you guys did also was you you did some things to the film itself in order to make sure that it would not reveal the angle and therefore the house or the home or the place from which the film was taken. Isn't that right?
Yeah, this is Bill. That's correct. From the location that it was taken, it would reveal the source, so we wanted to protect that. But during the day, we have a recording of the exact spot of how it looks like in the daytime. We have an exact recording of what it looks like at dusk, and then we have the exact same location, what it looks like at night. We do have some people with high technology capability right now analyzing that and taking the darkness out. I'm meeting with the people next week, happen to be in Washington, D.C., and we're going to try and get that information released once we know that the person is safe and sound that did the original.
I would like to mention two things, Bill, that will add in on this. I noticed in the multitude of posts that have been flying about the various sites, one criticism that's come out is that the sound on it suggested that it was an independent piece of sound that had been stitched to the video. And I have to say that to filter the sound, I know Adrian jumped through hoops backwards to try and do his best in a short space of time with that. And he had the difficult task of trying to retain the background sounds of these guys moving about and talking, but trying to filter out the person who was taking the film and other people who were witnesses with him so that their voices wouldn't be picked up to be identified.